Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, you're welcome to Sew with Mediva. And if you're a returning subscriber or a returning viewer, thank you for sticking to my channel. So in today's video, I'll be showing you guys how to cut and sew this off-shoulder bustier blouse with elastic sleeve. And this video is very beginners friendly and very easy to follow. If this is something you are interested in, make sure to watch till the end so that you don't miss out on any detail. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. So I made use of 1.5 yards of this beautiful African print fabric. I have my tape roll, I have my pattern paper. So we're going to draft it out on the pattern paper first for clarity and for accuracy of measurement. So let's go ahead now to draft the pattern before we transfer to the fabric. So I have my pattern paper here and it's in a fold of 2, and I've gone ahead to draw out a starting line at the upper part of my paper, which I'm going to take all my vertical measurements from. So because this top is an off-shoulder top, I'm going to place my tape roll 5 inches above the starting line. You can do 6 inches or 7 inches, it just depends on how low you want the off-shoulder to be, but for mine I made use of 5 inches. So placing my tape roll above that line, 5 inches above that starting line, I'm going to take all my vertical measurements. So the first measurement is from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 11 inches. I'll take from my shoulder to my under bust, which is 14 inches. From my shoulder to my half length is 16 inches, and then to my hip line is 24.5 inches. So go ahead to mark your own appropriate measurements, just as you can see me doing in the video. So the full length of this top is 27 inches. So after marking all that points, go ahead to extend the lines this way. So after extending, to avoid any confusion, let's go ahead to label the lines. So the first line here is like the chest line, this is the bust point, this is the under bust, this is the half length, and this is the hip line. So after marking the lines, the next thing is to place the shoulder measurement. So I'm going to come over to this first line, which is like the chest line, and mark my shoulder to shoulder measurements divided by 2. So mine is 8 inches. And from that 8 inches I marked, I'm going to come down by my round armhole measurements divided by 2, which is 9 inches. But I'm still going to place my tape roll 5 inches above the starting line to take that 9 inches. I hope you guys understand, because it's an off-shoulder top. So I'll go ahead to connect the 2 points together and further extend the line. Don't forget to place your own measurements when drafting out the pattern. So after that, the next thing is to mark the dart. So to get your dart line, you're going to divide your nipple to nipple measurements by 2. So mine is 8 inches, divided by 2 is 4 inches. So I'm going to mark that 4 inches on the bust line, on the under bust line, and on the half length line. So go ahead to mark your own appropriate measurements. So from the closed angle of the paper, I'm going to mark 4 inches in this way, and then I'll connect the lines together. So after that, the next thing is to mark the under bust tightening. So I'll come over to the under bust line. Towards the sides, I'll take 1.5 inches. If you're on the smaller size, you can do 1 inch. So I'll take 1.5 inches and I'll mark that same 1.5 inches on the half length line. And towards the center front, I'm going to do 1 inch on the 2 lines, as you can see. So if you're on the small side, you can just maintain 1 inch for both sides of the line this way. So go ahead to connect the points together. After that, I'll come over to the bust point and come down by 0.5 inches. You can do 1 inch, between 0.5 inches to 1 inch. So after marking that 0.5 inches, I'm going to take my curved roller this way and just connect the points together. So you should have something that looks like this when you are done. The next thing now is to mark the over bust tightening. So we're going to mark the over bust tightening on that line. So remember that my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2 is 4 inches. So I'm going to add 1 inch to that 4 inches to make it a total of 5 inches, and then I'll mark it on this chest line this way. So after that, I'll take my ruler and connect the points together. So you're going to have a bit of slant this way after marking. So on this line, I'm going to take 1 inch on both sides. So a smaller size can do 0.5 inches on both sides, and then I'll take my curved ruler and just blend it into it this way. Go ahead to blend it into the line this way. So after that, you should have something that looks like this. So the next thing to do is to extend these dart legs now all the way down to the full length of the top. So I'm going to extend this dart line all the way to the full length of the top this way. So after extending from the hip line, I'm going to come up by 2 inches. I'll come up by 2 inches from the hip line, and then I'll connect it all the way to meet the dart lines this way. So after connecting, this is what we have. The next thing we want to do is to mark the round body measurements on the pattern. So on the bust line, I'll place my round bust measurements divided by 4, and then I'll add these 2 inches to it. So whatever you have after that, go ahead to mark it on the bust line and come over to the under bust. Measure your round under bust, divide the measurement by 4, and then add the dart you have on this under bust line. Mine is 2.5 inches. So that is a total of 11 inches. So on the half length line, I'll measure my round waist measurements divided by 4, and then I'll add the 2.5 inches dart to it. So whatever you have for yours, go ahead to mark it. After that, I'll go ahead to connect the lines together this way. After connecting, I'll come over to the hip line and mark my round hip measurements divided by 4. So I'll go ahead to connect from the waistline all the way to the hip line this way. After that, I'll add my seam allowance of 1.5 inches. So add your seam allowance of 1.5 inches all the way down this way, and also connect the points together. So after connecting, this is what we have. The next thing is to mark the off shoulder measurement. So to get that, you're going to measure from one side of your armpit to the other armpit, like from your pit to pit measurement. So when I measured mine, I got 14 inches. So I'm going to divide that 14 inches by 2, which is 7 inches. So I'm going to place 7 inches on this line. So I'll first of all measure what I have before the dart. That is 4 inches. So that means I'm left with 3 inches. So I'm going to measure what I have again after the dart. So I have another 3 inches after that. So mine fits perfectly into my previous 8 inches shoulder measurement. I hope you guys understand. But yours might be lesser, or it might be more, that you might have to mark it outside that line. I hope you guys understand what I did. So whatever you got after measuring your chest line, divide it by 2. So mine is 7 inches, and then I'll mark it across this line. So I'll remove the dart, and then it fits perfectly into the 8 inches I have already. I hope you guys understand. So what I'm going to do now is to just form my armhole curve. So after forming the curve, this is what we have. So we're going to be cutting out this that area. So let's go ahead now to cut it out. So let's go ahead to cut it out. So just watch closely how I'm going to cut it out. So after cutting it out, this is what it looks like. So I'll go ahead now to label it. So this is the center front, and these are the sides. So when cutting on the fabric, you're going to add half an inch on all these dart areas for joining allowance. Before we move to the back, you can decide to leave the neckline of your own straight like this, but for mine, I want a little bit of sweetheart neckline, so I'm going to come down by 2 inches. If you want yours deeper, you can do 3 inches or 4 inches. Then I'll connect it this way. So after that, I'll go ahead to cut out that part, and then I'll open it up for you guys to see. Let me go ahead to open it up for you guys to see. So moving to the back panel, I've gone ahead to mark the vertical measurements, and the back panel has a zipper allowance of 1.5 inches towards the center back. So you can decide to fold it in this way to avoid any confusion before you mark the measurements, or you can leave it open, but make sure you start all your measurements from this line. So to mark the vertical measurement, I placed my tape rule 5 inches above the starting line, just like we did with the front, and I marked from my shoulder to my bust point, which is 11 inches, to my half length is 16 inches, to my hip line is 24.5 inches, and that is the full length of the top. So go ahead to label the lines to avoid any confusion. After that, come over to this first line and mark your shoulder measurements divided by 2. So my shoulder to shoulder measurement is 16 inches, divided by 2 is 8 inches. And for that 8 inches mark, I'm going to place my tape rule 5 inches above the starting line again to mark my round armhole measurements divided by 2, which is 9 inches for me. Connect the points together and further extend the line this way. After that, the next thing is to mark the dart line. So the dart line for me is 4 inches. The same 4 inches I used in front, so I'm going to mark it on all the lines and then connect it together. So after connecting, I'll come over to the waistline and take 0.5 inches, half an inch on both sides of the line, and then I'll connect it this way. And then from this hip line, I'll come up by 2 inches and connect it all the way to that side this way. So I'll just extend this line, this dart leg, all the way up because I want to cut out the back open completely, and then I'll extend it all the way down. After that, the next thing now is to mark this off shoulder measurement, which is the chest measurement. So since I used 7 for the front, I'm going to use that same 7 for the back. After doing that, I'll go ahead to place the round body measurement. So on the bust line, I'll place my round bust measurements divided by 4. And on the half length line, I'll place my round waist measurements divided by 4 and add the 1 inch for that. On the hip line, I'll place my round hip measurements divided by 4, and then I'll go ahead to connect all the points together. After that, I'll go ahead to form the curve, the armhole curve. From that 7 inches mark, I'll connect it all the way to the bust line this way. This is what we have after doing that. The next thing now is to add the seam allowance. So I'm going to add that same 1.5 inches I used in front. After connecting all the points, this is what we have. The next thing to do is to cut it out. So let's go ahead to cut it out. Before I open up the center back, I'm going to eliminate 0.5 inches from the zipper allowance to avoid any form of zipper bulging. So come over to this waistline and take 0.5 inches from the closed angle this way, and then go ahead to connect it all the way down to the full length of the top, just as you can see me doing, forming a slanted line this way, and connect it all the way up. So we're going to cut out that part. So let's go ahead now to open up the center back and cut out the dart. So after cutting out, this is what we have. So we're going to have 2 pieces of the center back and 2 pieces of the side. So when you open it up, this is what you're going to have. So that center back is where the zipper is going to stay. So I'm going to use these patterns now to cut out on my fabric, and I'll show you guys the next thing to do. So I've gone ahead to use the patterns to cut out the fabric, and this is what it looks like. So I added half an inch all the way around it, just like I said earlier. So all the dart areas, I added half an inch all the way around it. I also added at the upper part for turning over with the lining, as you can see, and I also added to the lower part. So these are the front panels. I have also used the patterns to cut out my lining pieces. So I've cut out the lining, as you can see, and these are the back panels. So we're going to start joining the fabrics together now, and we're going to start with the front panels. So I'll set the back panels aside while we work on the front panels. So after opening up the front panel, this is what you should have. So we're going to part the bust area using this thick interfacing. So I've gone ahead to cut out the wadding and I've ironed it to the wrong side of my top, the bust area, and this wadding is stopping directly on the under bust, just as you can see. So I make sure it stops directly on the under bust of my top. So the wideness of the breast part I have here is 5 inches, which is my nipple to nipple measurements divided by 2 and 1 extra inch to it. So the next thing to do is to join these pieces together. So I'm going to place it on each other this way. I'm going to place it this way, right sides facing each other. You can use your pins to secure it before you stitch it down, and then go ahead to join the pieces together all the way down. So I'll do the same thing for the other side. I'll go ahead to stitch it all the way down. I'll use my pins to secure it down first, and then I'll stitch it all the way down. I'll repeat the same process on the lining pieces, and then I'll show you guys the next thing to do. So guys, after joining the 3 pieces together, this is what it looks like. So before I turn it over to the right side, I'm going to notch this seam. So you're going to notch this seam area this way. Go ahead to make small cuts on it, making sure it doesn't get to where the thread is. So this is going to help the seam relax very well on the right side. So after I'm done cutting this part, I'm going to turn it to the other side again and do the same thing. I'll cut it open and I'll show you guys. So guys, after I notch the seam area open, this is what we have. So the next thing I'm going to do is to place this bustier on my tailor's ham or any circular surface, and then I'll iron this seam opened. You want to open up this seam so that it becomes very flat. So go ahead to iron it opened. Open up this seam area and then iron it all the way down. When I'm done with that, I'll repeat the same thing for the other side and I'll show you guys the next thing to do. So after I iron the seam opened, this is what it looks like. So right now I'm going to flip it to the right side and just go ahead to arrange it. So after I was done, this is what the bustier looks like, and see how beautiful it came out and how neat it looks. So this is the lining. I've joined it together and I've also notched the seam area. So I'm going to place them on each other, right sides facing each other this way. So I'm going to use my pin to secure the center points together, and then starting from that center point, I'm going to stitch it together all the way up. Close it this way. So this is going to bring out your sweetheart neckline very well. So I'll leave the armhole areas open. I'll close up the sides and also close up the lower part using 1/2 inch. I'll close up all the sides using 1/2 inch. So when I'm done with that, I'll show you guys the next thing to do. So after I stitched down the lining to the fabric, this is what it looks like. So I only left the armhole area opened, and before we turn it over, I'm going to notch the seam part this way so that the lining relaxes well on the wrong side when I turn it over. So after notching, I'll go ahead to flip it to the right side through the armhole opening. So after flipping over, I've gone ahead to arrange it. So this is what it looks like. You can see how beautiful it looks. I'm going to go ahead and iron it out. So after ironing, I'm going to work on the back panels. Let me show you guys how to join the pieces of the back panels together. So these are the back panels, and the first thing we want to do is to join the pieces together. So I'm going to join these two together and close it up on this side. When I'm done, I'll join the other side together. I'll repeat the same thing for the lining pieces. I'll use it to turn it over and then show you guys the next thing to do. So guys, after joining the pieces together and turning over with the lining, this is what it looks like. I did it just like the front panel and I left the armhole areas opened. So the next thing is to join the front and the back together. So go ahead and place them right sides facing each other and then use your seam allowance to close it up on the side. So I'm going to maintain the same 1.5 inches seam allowance I added to the pattern, and then I'll go ahead to close it up all the way down. I'll do the same thing for the other side. I'll insert the zipper and I'll show you guys the next thing to do. So after closing up the sides, this is what it looks like. This is the wrong side. You can see how neat it looks on the inside. So I'll go ahead to insert the zipper before we insert the sleeves. So after inserting the zipper, this is what it looks like at the back. You can see how neat it came out. This is what it looks like. So this is what the front also looks like. The next thing is to insert the sleeve, and I'm gonna head to cut out the fabric I will be using as my sleeve. So if you want your puff sleeves very big, you have to cut out wider fabric than mine. So the length of my sleeve is about 10 inches, but I added 2 inches at the upper part just before the line. this is going to be for the elastic casing. My sleeve is 10 inches and I added another 2 inches at the base for the elastic casing as well. So if you want your sleeve really big, you go ahead to make yours wider. So for mine, I have just 11 inches here, so you can make yours 20 inches on fold, or just depends on what you want. So the next thing is to place the armhole on the line this way, making sure the armhole, the upper part, is sitting on that white line, and then you have about 1 inch on the side for the seam allowance. And then go ahead to connect the points together this way, and then cut out the armhole. So after cutting, when you open up, this is what you have. So you have to notch the point where you want your elastic casing to stop. So I'll just notch it on both sleeves. So after notching, this is what it looks like. So the next thing is to fold in the casing. So I'm going to fold it in twice this way, and then go ahead to stitch it all the way down. I'll do the same thing for the lower part. I'll fold it in twice and stitch it down. So when I'm done doing that for both sleeves, I'll show you guys the next thing to do. So I have already inserted the sleeve on one side, and this is the outcome. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it for the other sleeve. So I'm using this 1/2 inch elastic band. So for this upper side, you'll need between 6 inches to 7 inches elastic length, and for the lower part, go ahead to measure around your bicep and then subtract 2 inches from whatever you get. Use whatever is left as the length of your elastic band, and then I'll use my pin to pass in my elastic band this way. So when it gets to the opening, I'll stitch it down on both sides. I'll repeat the same process for the upper part, and when I'm done inserting the elastic, I'll fold the sleeve this way and close up using 1 inch. So when I'm done, I'll show you guys how to insert the sleeve. So guys, after inserting the elastic band and closing up the sleeve, this is what it looks like on the right side. So the next thing now is to insert the sleeve to the armhole opening of the top. So I'm going to open up the armhole of my top this way, and then the part where I joined the sleeve, I'm going to merge it to the side joining of my top this way, and then I'll use my pin to hold it down. So you can go ahead to just stitch directly, or just use your pins to hold it down first before you stitch it. So after holding down, I'm going to join it together using 1/2 inch. So you can see that the sleeve fits perfectly into the armhole. So when you are done stitching, your top is going to appear this way, your puff sleeves are going to appear this way. So it just depends on how big you want your puff sleeves to be, so you can use bigger fabric to achieve that. So guys, this is where we'll be ending this video for today. I hope you have found it useful, and I hope you learned something new. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, and subscribe to my channel.